Hare Krishna, and welcome to this series on celebrating the 50th anniversary of Srila Prabhupada's letters. And today, a special day, we have Hare Krishna, and welcome to this. We only have one letter today, but it's a very important letter. A very, in one sense, unusual letter. It's a letter to a lady. I'm going to share the screen for you all. Just give me a second. So, as I was saying, today it's an unusual letter because it's not a letter to a disciple, but it's a letter to a certain lady known as Lynn Ludwig, as you can see in the screen. I hope you can see it. So, dated 30th April 1973, exactly 50 years ago, half a century today. Srila Prabhupada is in Los Angeles, and he writes to this lady who is in Silmar, California. I'm going to read step by step and comment by paragraph. Please accept my blessings. My dear Lynn Ludwig, please accept my blessings. I beg to acknowledge receipt of your letter from California, dated November 27, 1972, and I have noted the contents carefully, although due to extensively traveling and preaching tour in India, I have not yet got the opportunity to reply to you at length until now. So although this was a letter written some 6 months before, 5-6 months before, Srila Prabhupada did not forget it, did not neglect it, although it was, say, from an outsider. But now, after 5-6 months, he is answering it. And as we'll see, there is a complaint. So I keep reading. Your complaint is that you have met 2 of my young disciples in California, and they appear to you as having, quote, a very negative outlook towards the people they meet, unquote. Of course, I do not know the case, what are the circumstances, but kindly forgive my beloved disciples any unkindness or indiscretion on their part. So, it's an apology. At the same time, he's also saying, beloved disciples. Srila Prabhupada stresses, I love them, please, although I don't know the details, of course, of the circumstances. Please forgive whatever unkindness or indiscretion on their part. I continue reading. After all, to give up one's life completely for serving the Lord is not so easy thing. And Maya, or the illusory material energy, she tries especially hard to try to get back and entrap those who have left their service to become devotees. So sometimes in the neophyte stage of devotional service, in order to withstand the attack of Maya and remain strong under all conditions of temptation, young or inexperienced devotees will adopt an attitude against those things or person possibly harmful, threatening to their tender devotional creeper. They may even overindulge in such feelings just to protect themselves. And thus they will appear to some non-devotees who are perhaps themselves still very enamored by the material energy of Maya as being negative or pessimistic. So Srila Prabhupada is sharing here a very, very deep psychological insight. He says, devotees are leaving Maya. Maya is trying to recapture them because that's their service. And sometimes young or inexperienced devotees, so this may be younger, maybe 20 years, 30 years, but maybe also 70 or 80 years, because maturity is not just a question of age. You may have a 15-year-old who is more mature emotionally than a 75 years old. And we see this all the time. So they adopt an attitude against those things or persons that threatening the devotional creeper, or at least they perceive them as threatening. And they may overindulge in such feelings just to protect themselves. Now, the classic object for men is women. There is, of course, an approach in Varnashram Dharma for brahmacharis to, no, I'm not saying, of course, doesn't have to be like that, but sometimes there is a over-preaching or an exaggerate painting of women as the danger, the trap, as Maya personified, or as the enemy. And so devotees may overindulge may overindulge in this attitude against those things. As I said in the comment to the announcement to this letter, this may explain a lot of the troubles that have happened in the decades in our movements, especially in relation with putting down women, sidelining them, being afraid of them, or just hating them, or just not giving them the proper opportunities to shine, to advance, to be empowered in devotional service, and restrict them in so many ways. And sometimes the pseudo-Vedics or the neo-Smartas, they appeal to so many ideas and theories and speculations, so they can rationalize what is actually essentially a fear of women. Genophobia. It may not be technically genophobia, fear of women, but certainly there is an exaggerated animosity toward women. And this has made many women suffer. Hundreds and thousands of women suffer because they're being perceived, they felt mistreated, they were mistreated, they were sidelined, they were not given the opportunities for devotional service that they could actually take. And it has been also very negatively affecting many men who, instead of having a fulfilling, wholesome, emotional life, I have tried as much as possible to avoid connection with a female companion, legitimate, moral, and sacred relation with a female companion, and instead have adopted a very negative mood. Even sannyasis, we have seen so many sannyasis who will, they may have said this and that, or they may have stressed renunciation in so many words, in so many ways, but then at the end they had to submit to their attraction. And I'm not saying just a sexual attraction, it could be just attraction for companionship. In the throes of loneliness. So now, of course, in civilized life, there is control, there is discipline, there is rigorous interaction between the genders. But when it becomes too much of an internal dislike, when it becomes too much of an animosity toward the gender, which is of the humanity, then we have problem. We have problem individually, and we have problem as a movement. These are the years, for instance, in which a leading sannyasi officially, openly proposed that all women all over the world, in America and Europe, be shipped out to Australia. This is a true fact. I not only heard about it, but I confirmed with different Srila Prabhupada disciples were around at this time. They say, yes, the sannyasi proposed that all women from all the temples, at the time, of course, most devotees lived in the temples, and he proposed that all women in America and Europe be sent to Australia. So as they say, out of sight, out of mind. Of course, sounds something really impractical and almost pathological, but those were the days. Those were the days. Paridananda Maharaj, for instance, says that in his perception, till 69, 70, those were the golden years of ISKCON, in which women were respected. They were even called gopis. And at one point, they became witches. And a mood of militaristic brahmacharya and sannyasa started, and with that, a lot of problems, not only for the women, also for the men who adopted this type of attitude and created so many disasters. So let's continue the letter. Now it gets philosophical. You see, Srila Prabhupada takes this opportunity to explain the philosophy to this lady, explain the devotees are taking a glorious step. And yes, this negative attitude is legitimate toward the material world, because the material world is a place of suffering. So he apologized, but he's also defending the choices. So let's look. But actual fact is that this material world is a miserable, negative place, full of danger at every step, dukkhalayam ashashvatam, temporary abode of death, birth, disease, and old age, home of suffering and pain only. To come to that platform of understanding of things as they are, that is not a very common thing. And therefore, such persons who attain to it, they are described as great souls. And he quotes Bhagavad Gita 8:15. Mamupitya punajanma dhukalayam shashvatam napnuvanti mahadmanaha samsiddhir paramam gata. This verse is spoken by Krishna, or God himself, in Bhagavad Gita. So who can be more final authority? That means that anyone who has understood that the material worlds are places of misery and temporariness, dukkhalaya, ashashvatam, they never return here again. And because they are mahatma anaha, the great souls, Krishna keeps them with him, having qualified themselves to escape this nasty place by becoming as pure devotees. So the point is that to make advancement in spiritual life, everything material, unless it is utilized to serve and please Krishna, must be viewed with a pessimistic eye. We are not very much hopeful for any lasting pleasure or satisfaction for our deepest cravings within we're not very much hopeful for any lasting pleasure or satisfaction for our deepest cravings within this realm of gross matter. Very straightforward philosophical presentation, very realistic. Pessimism, in this case, means realism, understanding there is no hope in this world. Everything surrounding us will finish, all our desires will remain unfulfilled, material desires. You refer to the word love several times in your letter, but actual fact is there is no love in this material world. That is false propaganda. What they call love here is lust only, desire for personal sense gratification. Kamaesha, Krodhaesha, Rajaguna, Samudbhavaha, Mashanumapapma, Vidyenam, Yavairinam. Krishna tells Arjuna, his disciple, that, quote, it is lust only, which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world, unquote. In the Vedic language, their word for materialistic love, as we call it at present day, kama, lust for material desire, not love. The word for love, actually love, we find in Vedas, is prema, meaning one's love of God only. Outside God, there is no possibility of loving. Rather, it is lusty desire, the whole range of human activities, whatever and whenever, so long with this atmosphere of matter, every activity of the human being or any living entity is based upon or given impetus and thus polluted by the attraction between male and female, sex desire. For that sex life, the whole universe is spinning round and suffering. That is the harsh truth. So-called love here means you gratify my senses, I'll gratify your senses. And as soon as that gratification stops, immediately there is divorce, separation, quarrel, hatred. So many things there are going on under this false conception of love. Actual love means love of God, Krishna. Everyone wants to repose his loving tendency in some object which is, in his opinion, worthy. So it is a question of ignorance only, poor fund of knowledge, where to find that supreme lovable object actually worthy to accept and reciprocate their love. People simply do not know. There is no proper information. Anything material, as soon as there is some attachment, it will kick you upon the face, deteriorate, disappoint you. It's bound to dissatisfy and frustrate you. That's a fact. So these young boys in your country and all over the world, they're accepting, yes, that's a fact. And they're getting the right information from Krishna. Bahunam Jammanamante Gyanabhamam Prapadyate Vasudheva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudhurlabha, Bhagavad Gita 7:19. Quote, after many births and deaths, he who is actually wise surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Again, Krishna uses the word Mahat, great soul. So these are not ordinary boys and girls, our devotees that you have met. No, they are to be considered as actually wise, great souls, because they have experienced in so many births the miserable disease of material life, and they have become disgusted. Therefore, they are seeking higher knowledge, something better. When they find Krishna and surrender unto him, they become Mahatma, actually in knowledge. This material world is just like a prison house, a punishing place just to bring us to that point of becoming disgusted and surrendering at last to Krishna. Going back to my original mature nature, I think it's a misspelling. Going back to my original nature of eternal life, of bliss and complete knowledge. So these devotees, that is their credit. They have done what is very rare amongst all men in the human society. Sudurlabha, very rare. So after surrendering to Krishna, that will be the final receptacle for investing in love, in God. If somehow or other anyone develops their dormant love of God is present there in everyone, just like fire is there in the unlit match, covered over. If Krishna becomes the supreme adorable objectality, the supreme friend, the supreme master, the supreme lover, then he shall never again become disappointed or unhappy, rather because of his loving propensity, because his loving propensity is rightfully placed. Vachitam adgata prana budayantas parasparam katayantas chamam nityam Tushanticha, Ramanticha, Bhagavad Gita 10:9. Couple of paragraphs more. The devotee, one whose life is surrendered to Krishna, is always enjoying great satisfaction and bliss, and is constantly enlightened, always positive, not negative, as you say. The advanced devotee is the friend of everyone. Yoga Yukta Vishuddhatma, purified soul, engaged in loving devotional service to Krishna. Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. And in another place, Krishna claims that Yomad Bhakta Same Priyaha, that is devotee, who is very dear to him, Advishta Sarva Bhutanam, Maitra Karuna Evacha, is not envious, but is the kind friend to all living entities. The devotee is supposed to be, furthermore, equal to everyone. Pandita Samadarshina, Bhagavad Gita 5:18, never discriminating, this one good, this one bad, no. So these are the descriptions of the more advanced stages of Krishna consciousness devotees. One has got mature knowledge by development. In the present, many of our students are young boys. They're learning gradually, and the process is so effective, certain, and authorized that if they stick to it, they will come to the right point, as you say, of loving. But that love is not material. That is our point. So it may not be judged on the false sentimental platform of ordinary mundane dealings. So to say they're not loving, that may be true from the materialist point of view. They have given up affection for family, friends, wife, country, race, like that, all based upon the bodily concept of life, of flickering sense gratification. They have become little detached from Maya's love or lust, and they want Krishna's love, or endless, full, rewarding love. But they have not yet developed to that point. That's all. And we cannot expect that all of a sudden, being addicted to so many bad habits, your countrymen will give up eating flesh, taking intoxication, sex life, and so many other nasty things, and become overnight great self-realized souls. That is not possible. That is utopian. Just becoming initiated as Krishna's devotee puts him in the topmost category of human society. Sabhuddhi manu, manusheshu, sayukta, kritsna karma krit. Gita 4:18. Quote, he is intelligent among human society. He is in the transcendental position, although engaging in all sorts of activities, unquote. And such devotee, no matter he has not advanced yet to the highest level of spiritual understanding, still is to be considered the most exalted personality, never mind he has got any temporary frailties. Avichesu duracharo bhajate mam ananya bhak sadureva samantavya samyak vyavasito isaha. Gita 9:30. Quote, even if a devotee commits the most abominable actions, is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated, unquote. As you will say, to err is human. So in the neophyte stage, we may always expect some discrepancies are there. Kindly see the things in this light and forgive the small mistakes. The big thing is they have given their life, everything to Krishna. That is never a mistake. Your ever well-wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Okay, Jai Srila Prabhupada. So, what can we say? Very straightforward presentation of the philosophy. It's a lecture in itself, quoting from the Bhagavad Gita. So, defending the choice of devotees who, although still neophytes, are chosen Krishna over Maya, and explaining that they may not be perfect immediately because they're developing that love. So there may be still some, Srila Prabhupada say, so in the neophyte stage, we may always expect some discrepancies are there. So, over and beyond whoever was involved in this letter, over and above what happened to this lady. We don't know. Srila Prabhupada is giving us some very solid and very straightforward presentation of the philosophy. Now, I want to make a point, just like before Srila Prabhupada was saying, sometimes we overindulge in a negative attitude to the object of our attraction that can pull us down. I notice that sometimes devotees overindulge in this rejection of the word love. Sometimes on any level, on any dimension, on any circumstance, anybody use the word love, some devotees, which I believe they're neophytes, the neophytes Srila Prabhupada is described, they jump up. There is no love in this material world. It's all lust. Well, yes, that's you could say, the philosophical understanding. And if you're so allergic to the word love, maybe you can use other words like affection, benevolence. We cannot just be so blind to reality and say that there is no benevolence, or there is no affection, or there is no interpersonal sacrifice for one person to another, and it's all raw, unpolished lust, because that's not a fact. Yes, Srila Prabhupada, especially in this letter, explained the attraction between boys and girls, men and women, are based on that desire for kama, personal gratification, and often it's an arrangement of self-interest. Srila Prabhupada say, when that self-interest, either sexual or economic or simply emotional, is not fulfilled, there is divorce, the so-called love turns into hatred and so on. But at the same time, we see, even within the material world, that, I repeat the same words, there is affection, there is benevolence, there is well-wishing, and there is friendship. So sometimes devotees, the neophyte devotees, they close themselves to these more noble feelings just because they want to demonize every expression of well-wishing towards others as lust. But it's not like that. I mean, we know that the feelings of love a mother can have for a child. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a mother, and I have no children, but we can understand the sacrifices that our mother did for us. It would be a bit ungrateful to just say, oh, that was only lust. Of course, it's a relation of the body. Of course, she may not have the same love for another child who didn't come from her body, but we cannot just discount, we cannot just cancel every single good thing that our mother, our father, or our brothers, or our friends, or even some of our government authorities, or even the people in our life, neighbors. We cannot just dismiss every single act of kindness, of gentleness, of love the people have shown to us as a mere expression of kama and lust. Because there is goodness in the world. There is a lot of tamas and rajas, a lot of ignorance and passion. And there is a lot of selfishness, and there is even a lot of ruthlessness. But there are also noble feelings. There is honesty, there is respect, and there are acts of affection. Last year, I happened to be twice hospitalized for COVID, and I was impressed by not only by the professionalism, but also by the human human and humane warmth that many of the nurses or the doctors expressed towards me, and I'm 100% sure it was not just for money. First of all, the first hospital was even free. I stayed about a week and I didn't pay a penny because it was a government hospital in Brazil. But that didn't make them less attentive, less professional, less caring. I could feel that caring. If you are so afraid of the word love, don't use the word love, but you cannot tell me that there was no kindness, and there was no benevolence, that there was no compassion and mercy towards suffering people, including myself. So I want to end here with a little warning, meaning, yes, in this world, pure love may not exist, but let's not be so allergic to the word that we cannot recognize the good and the good feelings that there are in this world. Otherwise, the risk is that we become very, very dry ascetics, very repressed, compressed people who cannot appreciate the good things we receive from people, the good feelings, the good acts, the good thoughts, the good wishes. I remember my doctor, one of the two main doctors, he somehow took a special interest in me. At the end, when I was discharged, he said, look, the fact that you're alive is just a miracle. Medicine can explain certain things, medicines can do certain things, but not everything. Certain other things are given by something else. And at that moment, I thought of all the devotees who were praying for me. Somehow my service brought me in touch with many devotees all over the world. They not only donated for the cost. Second hospital was not free, so there were a few $1,000s of more than a few $1,000s of expenses. They donated their money, and they were praying for me. And if that's not love, what is it? It was not lust. It was just affection. It was just compassion. It was just friendship. So let's not be so hard-hearted and so dismissive or rejecting the warm feeling of the heart. In fact, let's remember this letter starts by Srila Prabhupada saying, my beloved disciples. Beloved disciples. Of course, you may say he's spiritual, but there is love, genuine love, even among devotees, even among husband and wives. Not all couples, but many couples. Over good brothers, good sisters, good cousins. Over with people in general. So let's not dismiss all of this as Maya. Otherwise, we will be in Maya, because we will be in illusion that everything in human society is simply a manifestation of gross lust. But there is also sattvic feelings. Let's not forget about that. Let's connect with that. Thank you very much. I hope you have a pleasant evening or pleasant night. Depends on where you are in the world. So I'll stop here. Hare Krishna.